Dub Nation woke up to a thunderclap across the bay, a rumor rolling through timelines and barbershops and late-night group chats that a blockbuster, multi-million offer has set the stage for Jonathan Kuminga to leave the Warriors. And even saying those words out loud feels like trying to breathe inside a storm, because this isn't just a transaction whispered by insiders. This is the kind of seismic speculation that shakes a franchise's soul and forces every fan to ask what it means for the identity of our team, our future, and that unshakable swagger that the city has worn for a generation. You could feel the temperature change the moment the rumor hit, from coffee lines in Oakland to pier walks in San Francisco, from pickup runs in Daly City to living rooms in San Jose, the same question echoing with equal parts disbelief and adrenaline. Could the Dubs really accept a mountain of money for a player who represents the raw, rising electricity of tomorrow? A human highlight reel still discovering just how high his ceiling stretches above those blue and gold rafters. Kuminga isn't just a name on a roster card, he's a promise to keep daring the league to run with us. A jet taking off down the runway while the lights at Chase are still warming up, a forward who snatches rebounds like they owe him something and then explodes downhill as if the court tilted toward the rim, and that energy has been the fuse for so many nights when Dub Nation needed a jolt to believe anything was possible all over again. Talk to any fan who rides the train to the arena and they'll tell you how the building inhales when he catches on the wing, how an entire section stands before he even plants his second step, how the air gets that static buzz that only shows up for special athletes who don't just play the game but bend it, and that is what makes this rumor feel like a parade of emotions marching through the bay without asking permission. If a multi-million bid really sits on the table, it's not just numbers on a screen, it's philosophy, it's direction, it's the front office looking into a mirror and deciding what kind of basketball church we want to be on Sundays and what kind of nightmare we want to be for opponents on weeknights. Because taking the bag today might cost a sky full of tomorrows that only reveal themselves when a young star gets the ball and the green light. Every dynasty chapter starts with belief and is tested by crossroads, and this feels like one of those intersections where the compass fights the clock, where win now urgency wrestles with let him become, where the memory of banners flapping in bay winds argues with a hunger to hang new fabric forged by fresh legs and fearless hearts who think gravity is just a rumor. Kuminga's game is a collage of all the things Dub Nation loves to cheer, the chase-down blocks that erase mistakes like a backspace key on fire, the flex after a grown man finish that lets the whole arena exhale a roar, the defensive slides that shut down drives before they start, and the fast break lanes that look more like a runway launch than a basketball play drawn with tidy lines. There is a certain poetry to how he attacks, a rhythm that doesn't wait for permission from a scouting report, a cadence that says the future speaks in dunks and sprints and deflections, and removing that voice from our chorus would change the soundtrack of the Bay in ways that spreadsheets can't quite capture and morning talk shows can't fully explain. We have watched him learn in real time, the way his read sharpened, the way his balance improved, the way his footwork began to whisper veteran truths, and that is why the rumor doesn't land like a clean headline, it lands like a cliffhanger, like a scene cut right before the big reveal, leaving the whole fan base with white knuckles on the armrest. Of course the league would try to pry him loose, because every franchise with eyes and ambition sees what is being built inside that frame, sees the way he can bottle momentum and pour it out on both ends, sees how he can be the bridge between eras for a team that refuses to step back into the pack and insists on being the drum everybody else marches to. The idea of cashing in for a massive valuation whispers a seductive logic, an argument that says assets can be flipped and windows can be widened with the right balance sheet, but the soul of basketball has always been about the player who makes you feel something in your chest when the game hangs in the balance, and Kuminga is already that kind of heartbeat for so many nights in the city. You can draw all the trade trees you want on whiteboards and still miss the roots that a player puts down with fans who bring their kids to see the next thing, the new thing, the fearless thing, because what he symbolizes isn't just speed and hops, it's inheritance, it's the passing of a torch that doesn't dim the flame but expands the firelight across an entire arena. Think about the matchups that already tilt when he steps on the floor, the wings who suddenly look over their shoulders, the bigs who backpedal just a little quicker, the coaches who burn a timeout because chaos just showed up wearing our colors, and tell me that kind of leverage can be measured strictly by a dollar sign and a line item. There is also the chemistry to consider, the way vets glance his way knowing that a cut could become a poster, the way a defensive switch becomes a trap when he slides his feet and then springs into a passing lane, the way a missed shot becomes a second chance when he crashes the glass like every rebound belongs to the Bay until proven otherwise. Dub Nation has a special relationship with players who embody audacity, and you can feel the community split into emotional camps right now, with some arguing for the safety of a giant payday and others insisting that the wild beauty of potential is the kind of bet the Warriors were built to make, the kind that made us who we are long before the confetti fell. There's an intangible swagger that comes from having a young lion in your pride, a sense that even on-off nights the game can be stolen by force of will and fast-twitch muscle, and that presence changes how an opponent warms up, how they scout, how they sleep the night before stepping into our house and hearing that first swell from the stands. This rumor also tests patience, the same patience that birthed legends in this franchise, the same patience that taught the league that talent ripens best when surrounded by belief, structure, and a fan base that treats every breakthrough like a holiday and every mistake like a tuition payment toward the player he is destined to be. If this story had no stakes, nobody would be talking, but the Bay is buzzing because everybody understands what's at play, a tug-of-war between immediate capitalization and the long arc of dominance, between tidy accounting and messy greatness that only reveals itself when you let a young star write his own chapters on a big stage. You can sketch the ripple effects easily enough, from rotations that would lose a burst of downhill terror to defensive game plans that would miss an elastic switch defender, from transition bursts that light up the scoreboard to the kind of momentum swings that make broadcasters change volume and fans change decibel levels in a heartbeat. There's also the brand, the aura, the spectacle that the Warriors have carefully crafted, a show that thrives on artisanship and athleticism, and removing someone who can compress a lane and expand an audience at the same time would shift that identity in ways that no press release can spin back into place. Some will say the league is a business, and they're right, but this particular business was built on magic, on the audacity to shoot from deep and to play with pace and joy, on the courage to trust talent that others said was too raw or too risky, and keeping that ethos alive means protecting the players who make the arena crackle with possibility. Ask any season ticket holder what they want and you'll hear the same desire shouted from different seats. Keep the future in-house, keep the electricity in our building, keep the runway clear for takeoff after takeoff, because the Bay didn't become a basketball mecca by playing it safe, it became a basketball mecca by turning belief into banners. There is a mentor-student energy coursing through this roster that can't be replaced by a wire transfer, and you can see it in the way the young guys soak up game from the vets, in the way small conversations on the bench blossom into big plays on the floor, in the way legacy is treated as a living thing that gets stronger every time a fearless forward attacks a gap and finishes through contact. Losing that living lesson would cost more than the balance sheet can add up, because every kid in a Curry jersey who sees Kuminga fly understands that greatness is a relay race, and the baton moves forward when the next wave takes the lane with fire in their chest and blue and gold in their veins. Consider the rivalries too, the way certain arenas boo him with a nervous laugh because they know what could happen if he gets loose, the way certain matchups tilt when his motor goes full tilt, the way he can turn a chess match into a sprint and make the other team gasp for air while the Bay inhales glory. Every fan base talks about potential, but Dub Nation understands development, and we've watched enough seasons to know the difference between empty athleticism and real basketball growth, and this kid has been carving craft into that frame like a sculptor who shows up early and leaves late, bit by bit, detail by detail, game by game. There is a leadership quality that shows up in the spaces between plays, in the willingness to guard up a position or two, in the refusal to give an inch on a switch, in the fire that doesn't burn out when a shot rims out but instead turns into a sprint back to erase a bucket that should have been easy for the other side. This rumor, then, isn't only about a price tag, it's about a philosophy of building, a question about whether the Warriors remain the team that takes raw starlight and turns it into constellations that guide the league, or whether we trade the telescope for a safe deposit box and call it wisdom. You can feel the heartbeat of this debate in every corner of the Bay, from sports bars that hang framed shots of epic nights to neighborhood courts where fadeaways are practiced under streetlights, because everyone who has ever shouted themselves hoarse for this team recognizes that some players are more than a line on a cap sheet, they are chapters in an ongoing epic. Let's talk gravity, not the kind that keeps us grounded, but the kind on a court that bends defenders inward when a driver threatens, that pulls help a half step deeper and creates a corner look that splashes through and sends the place to the moon, and Kuminga brings that kind of gravitational field with him every time he revs into the lane. On defense, he is the storm front that changes plans, the long arms in passing lanes, the surprise double that comes with enough force to turn a sure score into a scramble, and that's the kind of edge that wins tight games in springtime when half steps decide legacies and loose balls turn into instant folklore. The people making decisions will weigh all of this, the tangible and the tangible being the currency and the pick potential and the spiritual being the electricity that has defined this era of Warriors basketball, where joy and speed and skill and daring were not marketing slogans but the main ingredients of a dynasty stew. And yet, even as we analyze, there is a simple truth humming underneath the noise. Basketball is supposed to make your heart race, and Kuminga does that for Dub Nation on a regular basis, bringing that rush that has you jumping off the couch, spilling popcorn, high-fiving a stranger, believing that today and tomorrow can both be glorious. If the rumor grows teeth, it will test the core of who we are as a franchise, and I hope the answer echoes what made the Bay a beacon to hoopers everywhere, an answer that says we invest in players who set arenas on fire and learn to control that blaze until it burns the league in the spring. Ask the opponents who have felt him at full tilt and they'll talk about the way he collapses space, the way he turns a window into a doorway and a doorway into a runway, And that is precisely the kind of athletic alchemy you nurture, not the kind you ship out for a neat column of zeros that won't block a shot or finish through a forearm in crunch time. The kids watching at home don't dream about spreadsheets. They dream about breakaway slams and help-side swats and tomahawk finishes through contact. And those dreams feed the culture that keeps the stands packed and the chants loud and the Bay illuminated with a kind of pride that outlives any single season. I keep thinking about the moments that made this fan base special, about the patience that let talent flower, about the trust that allowed rough edges to be polished into sharp weapons, and I can't shake the feeling that Kuminga belongs to that lineage, that he's carved from the same stubborn belief that built bridges across the water and banners across the rafters. If this is a test of faith, then count me among the faithful who believe that you don't sell tomorrow for a receipt today, that you don't trade the wind for a weather report, that you don't cash out on a story still writing itself in bold ink and bright colors across the hardwood of the Bay. There is also the simple joy of it all, the happiness that explodes when a drive breaks through or a chase down erases a sure two, the way entire rows lean forward as one organism when he sizes up a defender, the way that joy is why we do this, why we buy tickets, why we tune in, why we keep talking about this team like family. In the end, the culture here has always been more art than arithmetic, more symphony than spreadsheet, and Kuminga plays an instrument that few can touch, a drumline and a trumpet and a bass drop all rolled into one, the kind of sound that lets the Bay know the beat is still ours. So if the phone rings with an offer big enough to headline a stock exchange, I hope the answer from our side is a smile and a shake of the head, a promise to let the kid keep climbing the mountain with our colors on his chest, a promise to let the league keep guessing when he hits that next gear. Because the story of the Warriors is not just about what we've already done, it's about the road still yawning in front of us, the miles we can run with a player who treats the paint like a tarmac and the perimeter like a hunting ground, a player whose best day keeps moving just over the horizon. There is a blueprint for how this ends well, and it starts with trust, with minutes, with responsibility, with mistakes that are corrected and gifts that are celebrated, with the understanding that greatness is a long river and you do not bottle it early and call it profit, you ride it and call it history. We've seen enough glimpses to justify the patience, enough flashes to justify the faith, enough stretches of two-way dominance to justify the belief that the Bay is sitting on something rare and rare and beautiful things are not to be traded lightly, not when they wear blue and gold and smile like the future. What keeps echoing in my head is the roar that swells when he attacks with purpose, the roar that feels like the entire region rising to its feet, the roar that feeds back into the player and then back into the crowd in a loop of mutual elevation, the very essence of home court advantage turned into living sound. The very thought of seeing that energy in another jersey feels like a cold wind through an open door, and maybe that's the clearest sign of all, because if your gut reacts before your brain finishes the math, your heart is telling you what this player means to you and to your city. There is still time for the noise to fade and for the organization to draw a line in the sand that says development is not for sale, that the house that Joy built is still open for more joy, that the Bay's basketball heartbeat will continue to thump to a rhythm set by both legends and rising stars. Keep the footage rolling through your mind, the transition storms, the glare in a defender's eyes when he knows a drive is coming and still can't stop it, the lift off 2 feet, the finish through contact, the snarl that follows, the backpedal with a grin, the high five to a vet, the nod to the bench, the symphony of a franchise alive. Because basketball is a people's game, and the people have spoken in 1,000 barstools and comment threads and sidewalk debates. Hold the line, keep the kid, bet on the sky, let the Bay watch him grow into the kind of terror that keeps coaches up and keeps fans wide awake with excitement on the night before big games. There will always be another offer, another check, another caller seeking a shortcut to what we are building, but the Warriors did not become the Warriors by taking shortcuts, they became the Warriors by choosing the winding road that leads to legends, and Kuminga is a path worth walking. We measure certain players by the silence they create in opponents and the noise they create in us, and by that measure this is a player whose value can't be captured on a balance sheet, a player whose presence turns games into events and seasons into movements. So let the rumor fuel the fire, let the conversation sharpen our sense of who we are, let it remind us that the Bay is both memory and ambition, that we celebrate what has been while demanding what can be, and that somewhere between those two truths is a forward in our colors ready to drag the future into the present. Every era needs its accelerant, and Kuminga is that accelerant, a spark that lands on dry tinder and turns a night into a blaze, the kind of blaze that draws fans from across the bridges and down the highways to be part of something that will be talked about long after the final buzzer. If you love this team, you know the answer in your bones. Keep the athlete who makes time slow down and speed up in the same possession, keep the defender who makes ball handlers rethink their choices 3 steps earlier, keep the finisher who turns rim protection into a suggestion. Because in the Bay, we don't just root for wins, we root for wonder, for the gasp before the cheer, for the play that people describe a dozen times in a dozen different ways on the train ride home, and Kuminga has already given us so many of those moments with the promise of countless more. Let other teams talk themselves into buying lightning in a bottle. We already have lightning in a jersey, and the smartest move sometimes is the simplest one. Hold tight, double down on development, and trust that the player we've nurtured will pay back that faith with nights that shake the coast. The rumor may fade, but the message from Dub Nation should be loud and clear, a chorus that carries from the Embarcadero to Lake Merritt to the South Bay and back again. This is our guy, this is our future, this is our spark, and you don't trade your spark when your whole identity is built on lighting up the league. Until something concrete happens, we will keep showing up, keep chanting, keep believing, because belief is what turned a basketball team into a movement out here, and belief is what will carry a young star from flashes to fireworks, from potential to proof, from rumor to legacy. And if the day ever comes when a decision must be made, I hope the franchise that taught the sport how to blend art and analytics, courage and craft, will choose art and courage again, will choose to keep the kind of player who makes the Bay feel like the center of the basketball universe every time he takes flight. Because that feeling is priceless, and no mountain of money can duplicate the roar of a home crowd catching its breath as a forward in blue and gold gathers, rises, and finishes while the building shivers with joy, a moment that renews our love for this game and this team every single time. So here we stand, hearts loud, minds racing, voices united, ready to back our front office if they plant their flag in development, ready to back our player as he climbs, ready to back our identity as a franchise that bets on brilliance and refuses to sell short the very magic that made us unforgettable. Let the rest of the league circle and whisper and push their chips to the middle, because Dub Nation knows the truth that has guided us through hot streaks and cold spells alike. When you have a rising star who ignites the building and terrifies opponents, you hold on, you build around, and you chase greatness with both hands open. And if this rumor was designed to rattle us, it did the opposite. It reminded us who we are, it reminded us why we care, it reminded us that the Bay's basketball heartbeat is strongest when we fight for our own, and right now, fighting for our own means standing tall for the future wearing blue and gold. So crank up the volume, paint the signs, wear the jerseys, and let the message be the soundtrack of this moment in time. Dub Nation believes in Jonathan Kuminga, believes in the journey, believes that the best is not just ahead but approaching fast, and no speculative windfall is worth dimming a horizon that bright. Before we dive into the next update, help us keep the Warriors' spirit alive by subscribing to the channel and smashing that like button. Stay connected with all the latest Golden State Warriors news. Now, let's get into it.